Hey guys, this is Camfrey15 and I'm back at it with another video for you guys, and this is going to be an NFL draft video. Now I mostly do Chicago Bears content if you guys are new to the channel, but since it's the NFL draft and since really sports in this day and time right now are non-existent, I'm going to do just the draft for the first round. Now the plan is, if you do want to see my thoughts on the Bears draft picks, then once the draft is completely over, we're gonna make another video regarding the Bears draft picks. But we're here to talk about the first round, and I'm joined by my guest, my uncle Daryl. Again, it's been a while.
Yeah, can't wait.
So
Let's
yeah.
get to it.
All right. So one of the most highly anticipated drafts of recent memory is the first round of the 2020 NFL draft. Obviously, the draft started out with Roger Goodell trolling with the boos and stuff like that. It just
That was pretty cool.
there was just some things Roger Goodell did that upset me tonight. But okay, I just got annoyed. So, anyways, the first pick was the Cincinnati Bengals, and no doubt about it, obviously, it was a done deal, and that's Joe Burrow, the quarterback from LSU. Anybody could have seen this a mile away unless the Bengals did something interesting. But other than that, that's really it. Now, I like the pick personally. I still think offensively, the Bengals have some pieces. Tyler Eifert, I think, is still on the team, even though he gets hurt a lot. He can still be a serviceable tight end. They still have AJ Green. I forgot the other wide receiver lined up opposed to AJ Green, but he's been doing really good for the Bengals. But they have a decent offense centered around Joe Burrow. Obviously, Joe Burrow might have to compete for that starting job against Andy Dalton because it looks like Dalton is going to stay on the team. But I like the pick. We're gonna see what Joe Burrow does. Calais Campbell, he sent out a tweet essentially saying like we're ready for the challenge from you. So I'm fine with the pick.
Um, the draft is such an inexact science, but this was a no-brainer as well too. He had probably the greatest college football career from a quarterback position um, since the inception of college football. So this was obviously a no-brainer pick. Um, so, but we'll see. The Cincinnati Bengals have a way of screwing things up.
Yeah,
So we'll see where it goes. Zach Taylor seems to be a really good coach. We'll find out now that he has a quarterback in tow. What can he do with this quarterback? How can he groom this quarterback? How can he get this quarterback to show his strengths as Joe Brady did at LSU? So we'll see.
yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to see where the Bengals are. If the Bengals get off hot on the start, which it might take a couple of years before Joe Burrow says, because even Peyton Manning called Joe Burrow saying your rookie year is gonna be a little tough. I do believe if he shows what he showed last year at LSU, the Bengals, if they can, fix that defense to an extent, they could be a playoff team in the next 4, maybe 5 years. But yeah, so the second pick of the draft, which technically is another no-brainer, but it was kind of like, who knows what this could happen for the Redskins, and they choose Chase Young, the D end out of Ohio State. Another one of those obvious picks that a team would make. Chase Young, obviously a really talented pass rusher. So Washington gets a pass rusher to get some pressure on the quarterback. They have to address certain needs still on the team, but the Redskins, obviously with Ron Rivera, who's primarily defense, I can see why they got him.
Yeah, me too. Chase Young is the best player in the draft. So again, this was a no-brainer. There was some rumors, although I just thought it was just talk about Washington trading down and things of that nature. I didn't believe one bit of it whatsoever, especially when you got the best player in the draft available at number two. So I thought that was huge. Cincinnati was nowhere thinking about Chase Young. He wasn't. He was the foremost player. It wasn't even on their mind. They were going to go with Joe Burrow, which left Chase Young to Washington, and we all knew Washington was going to pick him, and they did.
hmm So the third pick in the draft is the Detroit Lions, and essentially they do old for a new type of guy switch, and that is, if you don't know what I'm saying, they essentially traded away Darius Slade Jr. for whatever reason they did that to the Eagles, and they drafted Jeff Okudah, the cornerback out of Ohio State. So the first three draft picks were former players of Ohio State. Jeff Okuda, he's a pretty good he's a pretty good DB. I didn't watch a lot of Ohio State games, but I know they were he's a really talented player. As Bears fans, does this scare me? No. It's just one cornerback, but okay. But I think this can help bolster their defense because obviously they had one of the worst pass defense in the league last year for Detroit. So Detroit is slowly but surely trying to build the defense that Matt Patricia wants. Whatever he's going to do with that defense, I don't know. We're gonna have to see how he turns out. I think he'll be an impact player from the get-go, so we'll just have to see what he does.
Jeff Okudah, obviously, Ohio State, and Ohio State does tend to produce some really good NFL players.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Jeff Okudah was a really good pick. Matt Patricia seems to have brought the Patriot way to the Detroit Lions, and I think they're kind of fighting him on it. So he's moving certain players out so he can bring his guys in, so then he can instill that Patriot way into these guys while they're young. So as they're coming up, their belief system will be that way. Darius Slade didn't believe in it, so Patricia moved him out. Now, will that assist Patricia in the long run as far as being the head coach of the Detroit Lions? We'll see. But as you said earlier, this pick, as a Bears fan, it doesn't intimidate me, scare me, or it really doesn't move me at all to simply say Detroit is on the rise in our division. So it's one player, one pick. It was an obvious pick. Detroit Lions made it, and here we are.
Okay, so on to the fourth pick is the New York Football Giants, who's been in turmoil for the past 5 years. Yet again, they go for another offensive tackle out of Georgia, Andrew Thomas. This is a no-brainer. They needed an offensive tackle. Like, I go to school, as you guys know, or if you don't know, I go to school in Connecticut. I have a few friends who are Giants fans. So obviously they need an offensive line not only to help Saquon Barkley, but to also keep their franchise quarterback, Daniel Jones, upright and, healthy. Because obviously they don't have an offensive line, even when they got Nate Soldier to assist them. I think it's a good pick for them. What I saw in the highlights they were showing in the draft, they showed that he was a pretty good blocker, especially in the run. They said he might have to work a little bit on his pass blocking a bit, but he is a pretty talented offensive tackle.
Thomas, as a fan of the Chicago Bears and Alabama football as well as the SEC, I did see Thomas a couple of times. And again, it was an obvious pick selecting a tackle. I personally don't think I would have selected that tackle at number 4. There were other tackles I think I might have gone with. So I was thinking the Giants might have traded down to get the tackle that I think they wanted. I don't know if they really wanted Thomas out of Georgia. But again, we'll see. My personal feeling was I thought they would have traded down to have a shot at another type tackle. Wills and Wirfs, Wills from Alabama and Wirfs from Iowa would have been the ones I was thinking about. They're more athletic, in which they can move around a little bit more. Thomas and Becton, they're pretty much big guys, in which they're pretty much, I should say, they're not as mobile as the other two. So I thought the Giants would have traded down to get a better tackle. I wouldn't have selected Thomas at this pick.
Okay, so with the fifth pick, from the Dolphins, one of my uncle's favorite players, and that is Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback out of Alabama. For the most part, this was another kind of done deal because the Dolphins were the team to be. It was kind of between Tua and Justin Herbert that the Dolphins were going to choose from, and the Dolphins went Tua. Obviously, he's coming off that hip surgery he went off, but he's still a good player, and I think he'll come in there and he'll do good things for the Dolphins. They still have a quality, decent offense. Brian Flores is obviously building something there, and I'm liking this. He doesn't, he stays in a warm climate. We're going to see what he can do. Now, do we know if he's going to start? Maybe he'll start off the bat. We're just going to have to see. I think this was obviously a clear-cut pick and a great pick by the Dolphins.
Well, I think the Miami Dolphins did a really good job of throwing out rumors as what they're going to do with the pick. I think the latest rumor was trading up to number 3 to grab an offensive lineman, which is just, I don't understand the logic of that. I heard that rumor, and I was like, I don't even know why Bleacher Report even reported that. Trading up 2 spots just for an offensive lineman. That's crazy. So, but we all knew that Tua was the pick here. Is another obvious pick. His injury history is public knowledge. So I do believe that I don't think they'll play him right away.
Yeah.
They'll probably sit him, allow him to get his body, his mind, his spirit together so he can come back in year 2 and be able to take the reins over as quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. But obviously this was the pick I think we were talking about for months on end. Miami had this pick probably done 2 months ago.
So the 6th pick in the draft, which is the Los Angeles Chargers, which I believe they have some of the best looking jerseys in the league now. They drafted another quarterback, which is Justin Herbert out of Oregon. And this was another done deal. Whether you knew which quarterback needed to be taken by the Chargers, they definitely needed a quarterback because I really don't believe they're going to stick with Tyrod Taylor for the long term, if not for a year. If Tyrod Taylor starts not doing much of anything, they're going to put Justin Herbert in the game and see what he can do. I do believe Tyrod Taylor will get the start for the year, but Justin Herbert, from what I saw out of Oregon since I caught some Oregon games, there were some times where he impressed a lot, and there were some other times it's like, okay, what the heck's going on? The first game of the college football season last year when they played Auburn, he did an okay job, but really he didn't do much of a good job. And then there was this one time they played Arizona State. I didn't catch the full game, but one moment I turned that game on, Oregon was losing big time, and then I saw his stat line, and it was pretty bad. So Justin Herbert looks like that type of quarterback that, based on the type of game, he could be maybe bad or good, Justin. Who knows? I still think he's pretty talented. We're going to see what he does. Obviously, the Chargers needed a quarterback because Phillip Rivers left for the Colts. And we're going to see where this goes. But he's got great targets in Eckler. Williams, I believe, is still there. And Keenan Allen.
I did not know how big this kid was. This kid is close to 6'7".
Yeah.
This is a pretty big kid. He's very mobile. He does have a big arm. The problem with Bear is, believe it or not, throwing outside the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So they can get him to make the passes that they want to the receivers if they need to outside the numbers, then I think this kid is going to be special. But that was the problem. This kid's accuracy was not where it needs to be from a pro level, whereas Tua Tagovailoa, his accuracy is, NFL level. Honestly, if Tua Tagovailoa was not injured at all and he did not have the injury history he has, I think we're talking about Tagovailoa being number 1 overall as opposed to being number 5 to the Dolphins. So Bear went number 6 to the Chargers. We all knew they were drafting quarterback. They didn't have one. And we'll see where that goes as well, too. But right now, I was really impressed with how big that kid is at almost 6'7".
Okay, so the 7th pick in the draft is the Carolina Panthers, and they draft Derek Brown, the defensive tackle out of Auburn. Not much to say here other than when I saw the July feed of him being drafted, he didn't look too happy. But obviously the Panthers are stacking up on defense because obviously they lost Luke Kuechly this past season due to him retiring because of concussion. So it's more of a, stout defensive front that the Panthers are still adding on, especially they need to add on to get pressure now that Tom Brady's in the division. So I see it as a good pickup for them. They obviously are trying to, I guess, retool their defense now that the fact that certain defensive players are out of the team, are off the team now, as well as, having a nice little retooling on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think that the Derrick Brown selection wasn't. Well, it wasn't. It was. I knew they were going defense. I'll say that. I thought Isaiah Simmons, but when Tom Brady came into that division, the best way to get to Tom Brady is to get rushes right up the middle of the defense and try to collapse the pocket on the outside. Now, the Panthers, I think they do play more of a 3-4 defensive scheme in which they need speed on the outside, which is the reason why I thought Simmons. But once Brady came into that division, they had to get penetration up the middle of that defense so they can get to him. So Derrick Brown was the pick. He's a really fascinating football player. But I honestly thought at first Isaiah Simmons would have been the pick, considering Kuechly had left.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of Isaiah Simmons, he actually goes the next pick to the Arizona Cardinals, and he's the outside linebacker from Clemson, and he's a really good linebacker. Cardinals got a really good player, which, could be considered a steal in this draft. But obviously, the Cardinals are going to ramp up their defense with him. Dabo Swinney talks really highly of this guy, as they were saying in the draft. Personally, I thought they were going to go with maybe a wide receiver to add with DeAndre Hopkins and then Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk. But I'm fine with this pick. Obviously they need to bolster the defense. And this makes Arizona just, a threat in the NFC West, where they could actually, right now the NFC West is pretty, in terms of, availability to win. It's open because Seattle, they're still a pretty talented team, but they're not as good as they used to be. Rams, I don't know what they're doing. They're just getting rid of all their good players. And then the 49ers, they're still pretty talented, but, some people still have some questions, especially after the Super Bowl, about Jimmy Garoppolo.
The Cardinals, to me, are the team to watch in the NFL this year. They pretty much they drafted the best player available. And it just happens to be probably the most this guy is a jack of all trades on defense. You can put him at corner. You can put him at inside linebacker. You can put him at outside linebacker. If you're playing a 4-3 scheme in a passing situation, you can have him as an edge rusher. This guy can play everywhere. If the Cardinals can actually do some things on defense, they are going to be a scary football team. And keep in mind, Kenyon Drake was a good pickup for them at the end of the year. Yeah. So the Cardinals are the team to watch for me. So we'll see where it goes. It's going to fall on Cliff Kingsbury to make sure he calls the right plays at the right time. With that trio of wide receiver he has skill, he has youth, and he has experience all in that wide receiving core. And the Cardinals are going to be really scary.
Just one more thing to plug in. If you didn't see the draft, Cliff Kingsbury's house, that was pretty nice.
That was nice, wasn't it? That was nice. I'm pretty sure as we go on, we'll probably talk about some other people's homes and stuff. But, yeah, Cliff Kingsbury probably got
I'd say he's the best house out of all the coaches.
Yeah, it was the best one. Although Elway showing them 3 trophies where his desk was pretty cool, too.
So the next pick in the draft is the Jacksonville Jaguars, which they're going through crazy turmoil right now. And they draft the cornerback C.J. Henderson out of Florida, so obviously he doesn't have to move far. He was another talented, stout, talked about cornerback that was hyped up for whoever to pick in the draft. I think, the Jaguars, they got rid of, I think it's A.J. Bouye, and essentially they picked him up. Now in the draft, they did say he's a good cover corner, and he does play a lot of good press. They said the only thing he has to work on is open field tackling. I like it. It adds to the Jaguars' defense. Obviously, the Jaguars need to make a bunch of changes in terms of infrastructure with getting players that want to buy in, because the one defensive lineman, he literally the other day went on a freaking verbal rant to the owner's son. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're obviously going to try to get some players that will want to be in Jacksonville, because It wasn't 2 years ago. They were in the AFC Championship game, and then, things explode now. Now they're one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars are rebuilding. It pretty much started when I think a couple of years ago, right after they got to the AFC Championship game. Tom Coughlin, I can't remember if he was fired or he resigned or what have you, but he left the organization. And then shortly after that, you start hearing certain players saying certain things about how he ran the team and things of that nature. So once they built the organization to where they need to be, then he started moving certain players out. Leonard Fournette actually screamed on the quarterback, in a sense. Well, he didn't really scream on the quarterback. He was more like touting, hey, Cam Newton, come to Jacksonville. And I don't think that sat well with the organization. So all of that to say is that they are rebuilding. C.J. Henderson is just one cog in that rebuild, and we'll see where it goes.
So the 10th pick in the draft is from the Cleveland Browns, who will hold the draft next year. I don't know why it's being held in Cleveland next year. I digress. They actually get a good pickup. Jedarick Willis Jr. from Alabama. He's an offensive tackle. This is really going to help Baker Mayfield in terms of, getting more pocket protection, so he doesn't end up getting sacked and he doesn't end up, forcing throws, and he can take more time, in the pocket to find his open guys. The Browns needed an offensive tackle. It was there for the taking, and I think they got a pretty good offensive tackle from, Willis Jr.
Well, this is one of the things I was saying earlier about the Giants. To me, Wills was the best tackle in the draft. And I thought that the Giants would have been better served to trade down to come get him. Now, I may sound like an adopted homer because Chicago's my first, Alabama's my second. So Wills is by far, to me, the best tackle in the draft. And the Browns got a good one. This guy can do everything at every position, at every level. He can play guard or tackle. And the Browns got a good one. So Kevin Stefanski, who's the new head coach, he's going to love this kid.
So we get to the 11th pick in the draft, and albeit around this time, people were just now bringing up that there has not been no trades happening, and that won't happen for a few more picks, actually 2 more from this one.
Yeah.
So the Jets, I'm over here watching the draft live, and I'm thinking, okay, the Jets. I'm thinking, do they need defense? Not really. Do they? I look at their offense. I'm like, okay, they definitely need offense for Sam Darnold. Only reason why is they need a wide receiver. So they got to take either a Jerry Jeudy, a CeeDee Lamb, or a Henry Ruggs. So I'm like, okay, they got to take a wide receiver. It's no doubt they got to take a wide receiver. Next thing you know, the Jets draft an offensive tackle, Mekhi Becton, out of Louisville. Now, I have a friend who's a Jets fan. I texted him immediately. I'm like, I bet you don't like this pick. And he already told me he effing hated the pick. This was kind of a head-scratcher. I legit thought they were going to draft a wide receiver because I feel like when you look at the Jets, they don't have a go-to wide receiver. I thought the Jets were going to take Jerry Jeudy with the 11th pick because it would give Sam Darnold that, number one receiver to always throw to. But Mekhi Becton, it's an offensive tackle. It gives, their franchise quarterback more protection. I don't know how bad the Jets' offensive line is, but, I think that it's average in terms of, pass protection. So it's another offensive tackle drafted that will give the Jets, Sam Darnold the protection he needs. But I really do believe the Jets kind of missed on this pick, and they should have went with a wide receiver, whether it was CeeDee Lamb, Ruggs, or Jeudy.
Well, I don't like disagreeing with you, you know that. But I thought the Becton pick was a great pick. If your quarterback is not upright to throw it to that number one wide receiver, then your quarterback is no good. You have to protect your quarterback's backside. And the Becton pick was key to doing that. Now, granted, they had to sacrifice drafting a wide receiver, which I'm pretty sure they'll probably wind up drafting in the 2nd or 3rd round. There are still some decent wide receivers out there. Now, granted, I think they do have a guy. What's his name? Anderson, Robbie Anderson. Did he get away? I
I
don't know
think
if he
I
got.
think he's on the. I
Yeah,
think he's
I was about to
on
say
the
you're right. He might have gotten away, which is the reason why everyone says that they should have gone with a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And being an Alabama fan, I like Judy, but he plays within the numbers. He plays within the numbers. And the problem with the Jets is that they couldn't keep their quarterback upright long enough so that they can get it to guys like Judy. So I like the Becton pick. Let's just see what they do in the rest of the draft to see how they cover up that wide receiver spot.
Yeah. So the next draft pick, which is the 12th round pick by the Raiders, and they end up drafting a wide receiver, which I feel like they were going to do a wide receiver. Now, I thought they were going to draft CeeDee Lamb, but they actually take Henry Ruggs out of Alabama. I don't know much about Henry Ruggs because mostly the shine was always on Jerry Jeudy, but when listening to what the draft people were saying, they're saying like obviously they see him as a Tyreek type of hill player, and he's very fast, and he'll give the explosiveness to the Raiders that they need. Now, will he be their number one receiver? We'll have to see. Obviously, this gives Derek Carr a good weapon. Whether Derek Carr does start, unless it's Marcus Mariota that gets to start by somehow. But the Raiders, they're looking good. They obviously want to at least be somewhat of a threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. So they obviously, bolstered a little bit on defense by having a former Bear, Nick Kwiatkowski, on their side. And now they got a pretty good offensive, threat that can go downfield.
Henry Ruggs the third. And I'm gonna say Henry Ruggs the third. He ran a 4.27, and to me, that's slow for this guy. This guy is electric. Oh my goodness gracious! When you talk about the best athlete in the entire draft, it's Henry Ruggs the third. This guy is fast. This guy is quick. And there is not one cat, maybe not even Tyreek Hill, is faster than him. So, that being said, I think the Raiders, they selected a really good pick, someone who can stretch the defense. The Oakland Raiders culture has always been a vertical passing game, which that one speed guy can stretch the defense and allow guys like their tight end Waller to be able to work the linebackers within the numbers. So, John Gruden made an excellent pick here. I think Henry Ruggs is going to be fantastic within Gruden's system and for the Las Vegas Raiders. Great pick.
So the next pick is the 13th pick, which originally was the 49ers pick, but then we get our first trade of the draft, and the 49ers trade their pick. They actually trade a spot back, and they switch spots with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they draft Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle out of Iowa. They needed to make this draft pick because, one, it gives Tom Brady, their new quarterback, more protection. Obviously, the Buccaneers needed to do this because they didn't have a good offensive line last year. Now, you can say that's because Jameis Winston held the ball on too long. But still, they needed some solidity in their offensive line. And the fact that now they got it out of Wirfs, that only helps, the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. And the Buccaneers, they're looking already a threat because, 2 days ago, they just got Gronk back. Whether WWE releases him from his contract, I don't know what they're going to do with that. That's still an issue within its own. But obviously, Tampa Bay's, they're just looking really, really freaking talented. Right now, all they got to really clean up is their running back position, and they're ready for the year.
Yeah, two things with this pick, although it didn't really shock me. They traded one spot up to grab an offensive tackle. There must have been another trade that San Francisco was considering that made the Patriots want to make this deal. So obviously Wirfs was on their draft board, and they had to do whatever they necessarily needed to get him. So my thinking was somebody had already offered to come to that 13th spot. New England got wind of it and made a better deal to move up to one spot. So
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. I'm sorry. But anyway, Tampa Bay had to come up and get this guy. So obviously San Francisco had something on the books. No, I shouldn't say something on the books. They had an offer in play that they might have been considering prior to Tampa Bay coming in and snatching that 13th pick. Great pick by Tampa Bay. And you're right, their offense is looking really scary too. So if they can protect Tom Brady and possibly get a really good slot receiver, because you know Tom Brady likes his slot receivers and he likes to get that ball out quick. If he can get a really good slot receiver or someone that can actually do some damage within the numbers, Gronk and Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard, one of them's probably got to go. But great pick protecting Tom Brady's backside.
So with the 14th pick, the 49ers, after trading back one spot, they take the defensive tackle out of South Carolina, Javon Kinlaw. Now, this is another one of the teams who do the whole, we traded away, a veteran player for a rookie player or a new player, which they traded away DeForest Buckner to the Colts, and essentially they pick him up. I don't know much about Kinlaw, but from what I saw in the highlights in the draft, it looks like he is a guy that will get pressure, and that only adds to this crazy 49ers defensive front. You got Bosa, now you got Kinlaw. The defense for the 49ers is pretty stacked, despite the trade rumors going on with them. They're still going to be a team to, obviously try to get back to the Super Bowl and avenge their Super Bowl loss. But this just makes the 49ers much more of a problem in my eyes.
Yeah, Javon Kinlaw is a flat-out beast. The game that they played against Alabama, he was all over the place. I think he had 2 sacks, 2 hurries. He might even had a fumble recovery as well, too, and a couple of batted passes. So this kid is absolutely fabulous. He was the second best defensive tackle on the board after the DT from Auburn. So this was a really great pick. And on top of that, the 49ers, they still have to maintain that greatness on defense and keeping those salaries down, which is the reason why the trade for Buckner happened. So the 49ers did a fantastic job. The only key to the 49ers for me, you mentioned Garoppolo, to me is the coach, man. It's he's got to make sure. He's been in 2 Super Bowls and he has called some very bad plays which have lost him the game. He has to learn how to manage the game in crunch time. But all in all, this is a good pick by the 49ers.
So the 15th pick is the Denver Broncos, and just watching this draft live, I was like, okay, this is another team. Now I was debating, do they go defense or do they go offense? Now they just got a new quarterback who looks to be their quarterback of the future in Drew Lock. And I was like, they have to possibly go offense. So they do end up going offense, and they end up drafting Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama. I figured they would go with Jerry Jeudy, if not CeeDee Lamb. But this gives, a nice little, blanket to Drew Lock, and now he's got the number 1 receiver. So obviously maybe they're trying to do the Jake Cutler, Brandon Marshall type of thing they used to do way back, in the 2000s era. So obviously, Denver, they're trying to have an offense. Also, they have Cortland Sutton, who had a pretty good year last year. So we're going to see what Denver does on offense. Obviously, this will only help Drew Lock get better in his progression to be the future, Denver Broncos quarterback. They still have some offensive line issues they still need to address, because I remember when they played the Bears last year, their offensive line was pretty freaking bad. That's the only other thing I would say the Broncos need to address. But other than that, fix their offensive line and I guess tool up some of the defense, for Vic Fangio, and I think they'll be good. I don't think they'll be contenders. I think they'll still be maybe a 3rd or 4th place team. We're just going to have to see what Denver does this year, especially in offense, because they rarely move the ball from what I saw. But we're going to see what they do. But I like the pickup.
Yeah, I like the pick as well too. Not only because again I'm an Alabama homer, but between Sutton, Judy, and their tight end Noah Fant, this offense is it's starting to shape into a pretty decent offense. And you're all right. I'm pretty sure that with his quarterback in play, that he'll have to address that left tackle spot to cover Drew Lock's backside moving forward. But that wide receiving core and that offense is starting to come into play. So also look to possibly Denver a little bit later on, looking towards a running back as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have Melvin Gordon, and they have what's his name, Philip Lindsay. So I think they're kind of set at running back now.
Maybe, but Gordon has a injury history,
Mm-hmm.
and then on top of that, let's be honest, Gordon wants to get paid.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Well, he kind of gave in to a deal because he knew that was one of the few times a holdout didn't work.
correct. He was trying to do the same thing that Le'Veon Bell was trying to do, and I guess he realized that he wasn't worth as much as he was asking. I would honestly, I say look at that position moving forward. They may go with it for a year. I'm not sure if they're going to go with it past this year. So it wouldn't shock me if in the later rounds they draft a running back.
So with the 16th pick, we are at Atlanta, the Atlanta Falcons, and they take our cornerback AJ Terrell from Clemson. I figured that they had to take a defensive player because they already are, decent enough on offense. They definitely need to fix that defense because that defense is obviously their weak spot. And it's funny because Robert Quinn, who is now the Bears player, he actually said he flipped a coin depending on, Bears or Falcons. I don't know why he would do something as crazy as that. Thank goodness the coin flipped to the Bears. But
Well, also the Bears did offer him 570. So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
5 years, 70 million. So that money made his decision. I don't know about that coin flip either. I think he heard that money and he was just like, okay,
yeah.
well, let me listen to what you guys are talking about.
Now, AJ Terrell, what I heard on the broadcast is that sometimes he can get a little bit, around and he can get a little bit crazy, and sometimes his technique can go every now and then. Because he was one of the corners in that championship game that kind of got roasted, kind of got beat a lot by those LSU wide receivers. So obviously they said there's some things he needs to work on to be better, but if he can, get up there and improve his skills, he can be a really good corner for this team.
Terrell is to me he's an okay corner. Yeah, he got Jamar Chase roasted him from ships to stern, from front to beginning, and I think he might have had one or two plays in which he might have, won a battle or two. But all in all, Jamar Chase won that battle throughout the entire game. So Dan Quinn is a defensive coach, so I'm pretty sure that he'll bring this young man along the right way, so this young man can learn. But yeah, just like any other rookie, he's going to have his growing pains. So I honestly believe that he'll come along strong, and he'll be fine. But he was drafted because he was desperately needed, because they desperately needed some secondary help in Atlanta.
And one more thing, this was kind of wow, that's an interesting pick because you would think the first two cornerbacks that win in this draft, that would be it. There would be no more corners. But after that, there is about like two more corners selected in this rest of the draft. So yeah, but it is pretty interesting. So anyways, we cut to the Cowboys pick. Now I believe, and I'm going off on a tangent right now. Now, because the draft going to be held in person in Las Vegas. Now, Roger Goodell was already annoying me enough with all his little antics at looking at his little TV screens with the fans or whatever he was doing. He does make an announcement saying that, okay, out of, the fact that Las Vegas didn't get to honor and, represent the NFL draft like it thought it was going to happen, we're going to have it, again, in 2020, back in Las Vegas.
You did say 2020.
And I'm like, hold up. I had to pause myself for a second, like, wait, did this guy really just say 2020? I'm like, no.
He did say 2020.
And I'm like, wait, you mean next year? But it's when I saw the whole, scheduling for the draft. Cleveland gets the draft next year, and in 2022, Las Vegas will get it again. So hopefully by then things will clear up. So yeah, now the draft ways for cities. I don't know why they're having it in Cleveland. I don't know what building you're going to have it in Cleveland unless you're going to have it in the Cavs stadium. That's the only nicest facility I see in Cleveland right now. Okay, Las Vegas, yes. And then 2023, Kansas City. I don't know what's out there either. So whatever. I personally feel like the draft should be held in the top 4 biggest cities, which are Chicago, New York, Dallas, Texas, and Los Angeles. But if they want to move it around to different NFL cities, that's fine by me. But anyways, we're here to talk about the Cowboys. And this was interesting because they were always in the headlines for one thing. They're in some kind of quarterback contract situation. And, Skip Bayless, one of my favorite guys I like to listen to a lot. All I got to say is I know he lost it because the moment I saw his tweet, I'm not going to say anything because it's kind of an inappropriate comment. But I know this guy just absolutely lost it when he got his guy from Oklahoma, CeeDee Lamb. And I think this is a pretty good pickup. Now, I like the pick, but at the same time, I feel like Dallas could have went with a defensive player because they desperately need at least some, especially in the secondary, some defensive help because they lost Byron Jones to the Dolphins. But I'll take CeeDee Lamb. I think he's a really good wide receiver. Now, this all comes down to if Dak starts the season off. If Dak starts the season off, I can see the Cowboys offense being a real problem. But if Dak doesn't, because he's still having these contract negotiations, which I believe won't go on, the Cowboys will eventually give in because they always do. We're going to see how this whole thing issues. But I do like the pickup from CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys. Obviously, I still think they need to fix their defense. Their defensive line, albeit they have some players that have some issues with drugs in the past. We're going to see how that turns out, but I really think they need to address that secondary.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they were going secondary as well, too. But when CeeDee Lamb fell to him, you know how Jones is, man. He goes for the, the flash, he wants the headlines. He wants everyone to see. He wants Cowboys being number one on social media as well as in the newspaper. And what better way to do that is to potentially draft the best wide receiver in the draft. So their offense is really scary with the 3 wide receivers and the running back that they have. Coaching is going to be essential.
Mark.
Yeah. Coaching is going to be really essential for them to actually go to the next level. So I hope Mike McCarthy has got his playbook out and he's making sure that he's doing whatever he needs to do to get this team going in the direction that the roster said that they should be in.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting how Dallas does it. But this offense is going to be scary. You got 3 solid wide receivers and a quarterback who's looking for a long-term deal. So if the Cowboys are truly serious about getting to and I think what they're trying to do in Dallas is they're trying to get to the Super Bowl before they have to give Dak a large contract. Because, once you give a quarterback that large contract, I think your Super Bowl days are over because the salary cap eventually is going to do that team in.
All right. So the Dolphins, they get their second pick in the first round. And the Dolphins go with Austin Jackson, an offensive tackle out of one of my most hated schools, USC, because I'm a UCLA fan, if you guys didn't know. But Austin Jackson, offensive tackle. This is a good little, offensive line move that helps Tua to protect Tua, especially to help him not suffer injuries, especially when it comes to that calf injury. He's good. I did see him play, especially in the UCLA game. Obviously, him on the USC offensive line was good, and that was the reason why that Kendon Slovis, he did really good last year. Obviously I like this pick. It helps Tua, make sure he doesn't get like blindside hit or get hit straight up. So obviously we're gonna see how this goes for him. Obviously there's gonna have to be some work for him to be done because I think they even said like in the draft like they don't see him as a day one starter. He's gonna have to probably work himself up the totem pole, but we're gonna see where this goes. But I like the pick regardless.
I see Jackson and Tagovailoa basically not necessarily sitting the year. I do see Tagovailoa sitting the year, but I don't see Jackson as a day one starter either. But I do think that him and Tagovailoa, they're going to be using those two to spearhead their offense, hopefully, potentially for the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. So it was a good pick. We'll see how both of them come out. And the Dolphins, they had a really good day one. And they have a third pick we're going to talk about later. And the Dolphins look really good coming out of this draft.
And also, the reason why they made a second pick in this draft, this pick was from the Steelers when they traded Mika Fitzpatrick to the Steelers. And then the Raiders, second pick of the draft, this is the 19th selection. I believe this is also it's either from the Bears or the Cowboys. I don't know who it's from, but I think it's from the Cowboys. And they draft another cornerback taken, Damian Arnett out of Ohio State, who's the opposite player of Jeff Okudah. Obviously, it's another Ohio State cornerback. They typically have pretty good to nice cornerbacks. It's another thing that helps bolster that Raiders defense that is morely the weak point of their, team. So obviously, it's another, defensive player that can hold his own, because obviously you had Jeff Okudah on the other side of him from last year. So obviously he's a player that can hold his own against, the other wide receivers because he played against one of the better ones in college football. So obviously they know quarterbacks targeted him the most besides Jeff Okudah. So we're going to see how this goes. I like the pickup. It's just Las Vegas adding more to their defense.
Yeah, Arnett, I don't think he'll be a day one starter. I think he'll probably be a kid that'll come in and try to learn slowly, pick up nuances of what they're trying to do defensively, get in the secondary meetings with whoever the secondary's coach is for the Raiders, and try to learn the old-fashioned way, really good film study, practice, things of that nature. All in all, it was a good pick. They had to get help in the defensive secondary. Arnett was the guy. And I think they pretty much were drafting based on the school. Ohio State, again, they produced some really good, fabulous NFL players. Not as many or as good as Alabama, but they do produce some really fabulous NFL players. So Arnett is the pick. We'll see where it goes. But I don't believe he'll be a day one starter.
So the 20th pick of the draft, the Jaguars select again. The Dolphins, the Raiders, and the Jaguars. They had like multiple picks in the first round. But they draft K'Lavon Chaisson, the outside linebacker from LSU. A good pickup for the Jaguars. It gives them an outside linebacker to get more pressure on the quarterback. Obviously, like I said, is more of another key cog member to try to retool this defense to help buy into this new organizational management that, the Jaguars are trying to implement and try to kick out whatever Tom Coughlin had. And they're still, trying to rebuild this team into their own image. So I like this pick. He did good things, especially in the championship game. And really, the entire LSU team, they did a lot of good things this past college football season, and I like the pick. It's a good linebacker. So we're gonna see how he goes in this year or this upcoming season.
Yeah, Chaisson is another one of those physical freaks of nature that you can move along the defensive line. You can just move him along the front seven, and I think he'll be successful no matter where he goes. He was dominant at LSU, and it was a very good pick. And I think the Jaguars, based on this particular situation, based on the culture change they're going through, they just selected the best player available, and he was it.
So the 21st pick in the draft is the Philadelphia Eagles, and I knew they had to draft a wide receiver unless they were maybe going defense. Now, what I thought, because at the time the best wide receiver available on the draft board was Justin Jefferson. They do not end up taking Justin Jefferson, which actually kind of shocks me. And they end up taking Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver out of TCU. Now, I didn't watch much TCU games because TCU wasn't that good of a team this past season. But from what they were saying, they're saying he was pretty good. He was fast, and he's like a really good, person that high points the ball effectively. So the Eagles got, a wide receiver that, say, if more wide receivers go down, he's a wide receiver that can come in and try to step up and try to help out Carson Wentz.
With their offense, the way they were in their depth at wide receiver, Reagor is going to be a day one starter. You also have Desean Jackson. I don't know what his health status was. I think he went out with a hernia injury, and I don't know what his status is going to be coming in. I don't know if he's going to be physically able to withstand the entire season. So Reagor is a nice addition to the football team to do a lot of the things that Desean Jackson does. I actually see the Philadelphia Eagles going wide receiver later in the draft too, because the depth at that position on their team was horrid. And they need to get Carson Wentz some weapons. They got tight ends. They need wide receivers. I can see them going for another wide receiver later on as well.
Okay. So the 22nd pick in the draft is Chicago Bears' rival, the Minnesota Vikings. And I figured that they would do this. And I was like, why? Why? I was like, we already have a bad enough secondary that can't cover some of the best wide receivers. Now we got to deal with another thing. And this is a team that essentially does the same thing some past teams were doing the start of the draft. They kick the old player to the curb and bring in the new one. They trade away Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills, and they bring in Justin Jefferson. And when I heard that, I was like, well, that's just great. Not to say that I'm not worried about the Minnesota Vikings because they still got Kirk Cousins. It's just another wide receiver issue we have to deal with because now they got Adam Thielen. They got that pretty talented receiver they got from Tennessee. I forgot his name. And then now they got Justin Jefferson, who had arguably one of the best wide receiver careers in LSU from this past season. And I'm like, as a Bears fan, I'm like, really? Okay. We're just going to have to deal with it, and hopefully the Bears can get pressure on him so he doesn't get catch passes. But I have a feeling he's going to torment us for the next couple of years. But obviously, it's a move the Minnesota Vikings needed to make. He's obviously good. A great wide receiver. Now, we're going to see what Kirk Cousins does with him. Kirk Cousins isn't the best quarterback because Stephon Diggs had issues with him. Now, the one thing the analyst brought up on the broadcast is the fact that it's going to be interesting how, they handle the slot position because Adam Thielen does play a lot of slot, as well as Justin Jefferson plays a lot of slot too. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out of. So obviously he is going to be their replacement and possible future number one wide receiver, that, will try to replace what Stephon Diggs did there. But it's a good pickup by the Minnesota Vikings as much as it pains me to say that.
It was a good pickup. And yeah, I felt the same way as you did. And additionally, and hopefully we see the trend in the NFC Central in the second round. But I kind of noticed that our NFC Central teams were very active on day one, either looking at trades or making trades. There's another trade we're going to talk about later on. The Vikings traded down, then they traded back up traded out of the first round, and traded back up into the first round. So the Vikings were obviously active. The Green Bay Packers were active, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And it just pains me to say that we have a lot of these holes, and I'm hoping that the Bears do something in the second round, and they be just as active. I hope they're looking at this and they'll say, well, we need to be just as active too, where they'll be taking those 43 and 50 picks and moving down to get more picks. I'm just hoping that they are active. But the Minnesota Vikings made us splash with this pick because he's going to be really good.
So we get to the 23rd pick, and at first the Patriots look like they're going to be selecting, but they later trade their pick to trade back into the second round, and they get 2 more draft picks, one for the second round and one for the third round, and they trade with the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Chargers end up getting inside linebacker from Oklahoma, Kenneth Murray. I believe he was one of their star defensive players on Oklahoma because, let's be real, Oklahoma plays no defense. So obviously this is a really good pickup. He's a physical type of guy, and he'll get pressure on the quarterback when needed to. He was, if not the best player on Oklahoma's defense from last year. So, yeah, it's one of the main reasons why they stood no chance against LSU, or they couldn't make the game closer because that guy was out that game.
Yeah, I think if Oklahoma's defense was a better defense, this kid might have been drafted higher. But due to the fact that they're in the Big 12 does not do anything remotely close to what we consider defense, that he dropped probably a good 10 spots. He might have been up there with Isaiah Simmons if Oklahoma's defense was a lot better. But lost the pick by the Chargers, lost the way they traded with the Patriots to get the pick. He was the guy I think that they were looking for, and they got him.
And it also helps bolster that Chargers defense, who are trying to step their game up from last year, which they kind of failed to meet expectations from last year. So obviously they still got a pretty stout defense in Los Angeles, especially, going to that new stadium that they're building that is already done, or it's still going on, but, that will be ready by this upcoming season. So the 24th pick is the Saints, and they end up drafting the center from Michigan, Cesar Ruiz. I don't know what to think of this, really. I guess this is just more protection for Drew Brees. I don't think he's going to be a starter because I think their starting center is Max Unger, I think. But, obviously he'll learn something from Unger to be a better center. And it's just going to help the Saints offensive line. So that's really all I got to say.
This was a head scratcher. I was thinking defensive second. I was thinking linebacking core. I was, they drafted a center last year, if I'm correct. So it must have been something about the center position where they had a slot available. They may be considering, allowing whoever their current center is to move on and not sign them a contract or what have you. This was a head scratcher for me. And then on top of that, Breeze is not going to be there for another couple of years. So I would have thought, Queen or Brooks or go defense. The Saints they've had in the past NFC Championship games, it was their defense that failed them in the end, which, I would have thought they would try to, shore up those positions on defense so that those things don't happen in further NFC Championship games. This was a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, like we both said, there's really nothing to say because we just don't know where this is going to go. So for the 25th pick, it was going to be the Vikings selecting, but then they later trade back to the 49ers, and the 49ers end up drafting Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State. He's a wide receiver. Obviously, they needed to draft a wide receiver to replace the lost production of Emmanuel Sanders, who went to the Saints. And, I like this pickup. It gives them more versatility in their wide receiving core, gives Garoppolo another target to throw to. I didn't watch much of Arizona State games, so I don't know how good he is. But obviously, Kyle Shanahan has plans to use him. Obviously, I think at this point he was really the best wide receiver to be taken off the board. So we're going to see how this turns out. Obviously, we're going to see if he, can at least, be, average with the production when it comes to, him and Emmanuel Sanders.
That's true. They had to make this pick after Emmanuel Sanders chose to go to New Orleans. They had to get a wide receiver to replace him. The 49ers traded for Emmanuel Sanders, so losing him was obviously a big blow to their offense. So they had to make this pick. It was a no-brainer, and they made the selection. We'll see how it goes. Deebo Samuel is a beast. George Kittle is a beast. But again, from where I sit, the key to the 49ers are not the play of particular players from position to position. Is going to be the play calling of Kyle Shanahan in crucial moments of big games. If he can do that, then the 49ers will be fine.
So the 26th pick, which looked like to be the Dolphins again, but we get another trade, and they actually trade with the Green Bay Packers. And the Green Bay Packers ends up taking, which was kind of an obvious pick for the Green Bay Packers, because they were kind of hinting at this like a couple of weeks ago. And the Green Bay Packers end up taking quarterback Jordan Love out of Utah State. Now, for you Green Bay Packer fans watching, I just got to say this. I hope he turns out to be a bust. The moment he got drafted, I was legit saying that from my screen. I hope he turns out to be a bust, because the fact that the Green Bay Packers can get their quarterbacks right and the Bears have the ineptitude to get their quarterbacks right are the mental fortitude to go pick up a nice quarterback but don't do it. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna try to be as positive as I can to you Green Bay Packers as a Bears fan, as much as it pains me, but I still want him to be a bust. Now, I don't know what the heck's going on. They did talk to Aaron Rodgers about them possibly drafting Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers kind of gave the Brett Favre response where he's like, well, I don't give really a damn if they draft this kid. I'm just going to focus on me, essentially. So, they draft him, they draft him. I feel like he's going to be that type of kid, or that type of guy. Aaron Rodgers is going to be the type of guy that shows the kid, like, legit. He's not going to pay attention to him. He's just going to do his own thing and probably hope and pray that the Packers don't end up trying to ship him out. And hopefully, as for Bears fans, this doesn't turn out to be another Aaron Rodgers situation where the previous guy leaves only for the new guy to come in, struggle the first year, and then be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how Jordan Love plays. He never did play against some top competition in college football because Utah State's not that big of a school. It's going to be interesting. He is talented. I will give him that. So he could be what keeps the Packers continually being good. Hopefully he isn't, for my sake. But that's all I got to say. But the kid's got talent, and we're going to see what he does. Hopefully I see him throwing interception to Bear players more than touchdowns.
Two things about this particular pick. The first thing is that I'm not shocked that they drafted a quarterback. I'm shocked they traded up to draft a quarterback. So to me, that move and that move alone spells the coming to the end of an era in Green Bay. It's just that simple. The second thing is I think they saw, here's the Patrick Mahomes effect. I think they saw that kind of skills and abilities in this kid that Patrick Mahomes displays. So from that standpoint, yes, I'm hoping he doesn't live up to that type of player. So we'll see where it goes. But again, it's just another NFC Central team on day one that's making moves, whereas our team, Chicago Bears, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, just seem to be twiddling their thumbs. So we'll see day two what the Bears do. But for this pick and this pick right now, we just saw the coming to an end of an era in Green Bay.
Yeah, I think the Packers might give Aaron Rodgers 2, maybe 3 more years, and they'll be like, okay, it's time to get out.
I just think his contract what is his contract? He's got another two years left on his deal.
So I think so.
I think 2 years left on his deal. So I just don't think that they are going to I don't know if Rodgers wants to re-sign with Green Bay or not. Is Rodgers saying he's going to retire? I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's had those conversations with the Green Bay management, but end of an era coming in Green Bay, man. I say in 2 years we won't see Rodgers. We won't see number 12 at quarterback for Green Bay.
My only other thing with the Packers, and I'm just being an optimistic type of person, they do need to get, whenever Jordan Love does make his start, they're going to have to get him some help other than Devontae Adams. At first, I thought they would actually take a tight end, which the Bears desperately need, and the tight end that I personally want right now. Hopefully no teams pick him up by the time the Bears hopefully can get him. But they definitely got to, that's the one thing about the Packers offense that they need to fix, and that the fact is they need to get some offensive help for their future of the organization. Otherwise, he might end up turning out not to be pretty good. So with the 27th pick, the Seahawks choose inside linebacker from Texas Tech, Jordan Brooks. This is kind of a move when I just watched him. I don't know much because who watches Texas Tech games? I don't know much about him. He looks to be pretty talented. It's another of the linebacking core Seattle likes to always implement. I don't think he's going to be a starter because, Seattle, they have enough linebackers as is, like Bruce Irvin. He's actually coming back to the Seattle Seahawks. He might be a backup player or just a reserve player for players that need to get some rest for like a breather or something. But he seems like he could bring an impact to this team. Obviously, Seattle's still, making more defensive moves because they kind of are solid on offense because they got DK Metcalf. So, it's just a typical defensive Seattle move that they've been making for the past couple of years.
Yeah. In the draft, if you have your sights set on a particular player, then if he must have been number one on their draft board at the position that they were taking. He's a good player. And again, if the defenses in the Big 12 were better, we would probably see a lot of these guys go a little higher. The defense at the Big 12, they're horrid. They're bad. I mean, I don't even know how to explain how bad the defenses are in the Big 12. So getting this guy at 27, although individually he's probably really good and he was number one on their draft board, then I think, again, if the defenses were better in the Big 12, you'll probably see a lot of these guys go a little bit higher. So my only comment about this particular player is that he was number one on Seattle's draft board based on all the players that were taken before him.
Okay, so 28th pick as the draft, first round of the draft is rounding up. Baltimore Ravens, they select Patrick Queen, inside linebacker from LSU. I figured they were going to go linebacker. They were kind of solid enough on offense, and I really don't believe they were going for a safety, despite the safeties that are still available in this draft. And I was calling my friend. I was like, they're either going with defensive lineman or they're going with linebacker. So once they drafted linebacker, I was like, okay, I called it. They figured they'd go linebacker. It's another LSU linebacker who was really talented last year. Nothing much else here to say. Really, it's an addition to that same, Baltimore Ravens type of, front of where they just focus on the defense and they're just that tough, gritty team that just keeps fighting.
Patrick Queen is, albeit he's very small for a linebacker. I think he's like sub 230. He's probably a 225 up in that range right there. So really good linebacker. He's a Baltimore Raven kind of guy. I still think the Saints should have picked this guy up because I think I'm not going to say Queen is going to be special, but he's going to be really solid for the Baltimore Ravens because they are a defense-first football team. Lamar Jackson is great, but they've always been a defense-first football team. This is their kind of player, their kind of pick, and he's going to excel in that defensive scheme.
Now, the 29th pick of the draft is the Tennessee Titans, and they draft Isaiah Wilson, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. Um, it's kind of to me a little question mark, little head scratcher because the Tennessee Titans offensive line was really good last year. But I think the reason why they did that is because Jake Coughlin, he left to go to the Browns.
Hmm.
So obviously they're gonna try to fit him in as a replacement. So it's good, and if he comes out to be good, the Tennessee Titans will have another good offensive line this upcoming year. So we're gonna see. The offensive line for Tennessee is really good. Um, we're we're gonna see how this guy does. Obviously, he's pretty good from Georgia because I did see some highlights on the broadcast, and obviously he's going to be Jake Coughlin's replacement, and we're gonna see how he turns out.
Yeah, I mean, once Conklin left, they had a hole to fill. So, and you got a number one draft pick. You got a slot pick for that slot. He was probably number one on their draft board again, just like Patrick Queen before him. Big player, solid player from the SEC, and it was just one of them things. Whereas the Titans have to protect and be able to win at the line of scrimmage for Derrick Henry and for Ryan Tannehill. That's what made the Titans so successful. They won the line of scrimmage in a lot of their games, and I think they're going to continue to do that, try to do that moving forward.
So the 30th pick of the first round, the Dolphins select Noah Eve. I'm not even going to say the last name. It's just confusing. But he's the,
Gane.
he's the cornerback from Auburn. Dolphins. I think now. Actually, I'm actually scratching my head on this one too because they actually got Xavier Rhodes from the Vikings, I believe, and they got Byron Jones as their corners. He's maybe might be a slot corner for them. Who knows? We're gonna see what Miami does with him. Um, Obviously, if they're not gonna have no slot corner, then I see him as a clear backup because it makes no sense that you'd pay your two top corners this type of money only to draft one. But we're gonna see what he does, whether they use him as a slot or just as a reserve, just in case one of those guys go down with injury.
I think the reason why they did this is it's the Patrick Mahomes effect. Whereas a lot of teams are shifting towards offense to try to do what Kansas City has been doing over the past 2 years. Miami, on the other hand, is doing what's necessary so you can stop those particular offenses who like to spread you out. Get three stud cornerbacks so that you can cover not only the ends, but you can also cover the slots as well too. Miami, and then on top of it, keep in mind Brian Rhodes, the coach of Miami, he is doing a fantastic job building that defense and still in that Patriot way. And I actually liked the pick. I saw what they were going for it. I knew about Rhodes. I knew about Jones. So now they can actually man cover three positions, potentially three positions on defense. And this is the move to me that says, hey, Kansas City Chiefs, we're not afraid of your wide receivers because we're going to have three stud cornerbacks that can cover you guys.
So the 31st pick of the NFL first round draft, the Minnesota Vikings. I think that's more of a Mike Zimmer type of draft pick, and they select Jeff Gladney from cornerback from TCU. Don't know much about him. It's like Ragor from TCU. I didn't watch much of TCU's to know I get a feel for this guy, but obviously the Vikings saw something in him. And they do need to, help that secondary a little bit. They did lose Xavier Rhodes. And we're going to see what he does for them. But obviously, I feel like this is a Mike Zimmer pick because he's a defensive guru. And we're going to see what he does. Hopefully, he doesn't come back to bite the Bears in the butt.
I did see one game with TCU, and it was the game against Oklahoma. Gladney was very effective on CeeDee Lamb. The way that they covered him, they pretty much guarded him man up. And Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts' first read was always a CeeDee Lamb. When that first read was not there, Jalen Hurts was heading for the hills because they had CeeDee Lamb covered. So, and they were covering him with Jeff Gladney. So Gladney is a good pick. He's a Mike Zimmer kind of guy. And again, they lost Xavier Rhodes, so they had to replace the position. And it was a really good pick. Again, it was another NFC Central team being very active on day one, either trading down, trading back up. And I think this pick, I think they traded down to 31.
Yeah.
Getting two more picks.
Yeah. They traded picks with the 49ers.
The 49ers, and 49ers gave them, what, 2 third-rounders as well?
No, I think they just switched spots. The 49ers had the 25th, while the Vikings get the 31st.
I got you. Okay. All right. Well, again, it was one of them things where they traded back up to come back in to get 31. And Jeff Gladney was going to be a good pick. How good he's going to be, we'll see. I don't think and honestly, he may be a day one starter considering the position was left vacant by Xavier Rhodes.
So the last pick in the first round of the NFL draft, the Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, going off tangent, when they showed Roger Goodell flashing that Kansas City Chiefs jersey, I just got annoyed. Now, I didn't get annoyed by just the Chiefs thing. I just got annoyed from the fact that he was just flaunting that thing for no apparent reason. I'm like, come on. Like, it was like 9 o'clock my time. I'm trying to freaking get ready for this thing and stuff like that. And he's over here flaunting jerseys. But anyways, they were talking much about running backs not being taken. So the Chiefs, I thought they were going to go defense just to bolster their defense. But they end up going offense, and they end up drafting the running back out of LSU, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, I like the pick. I thought they would either go with DeAndre Swift or maybe J.K. Dobbins. But I still like him. I loved what I saw every time I watched an LSU game. He was just a nice, tough, gritty back that just kept fighting for extra yards. And it's like when you thought you got him down, he would just keep going. And I think this is a good pickup. The analyst did say he needs to work on his pass protection, but obviously, this takes a huge load off of Patrick Mahomes if they can get the run going. And if he's running, downhill pretty hard and he's breaking tackles, this Chiefs offense is just more of a problem to deal with.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the reason why LSU beat Alabama. I mean, this kid, he wanted it. He did everything that was necessary in one game to beat my football team. And him going to the best team in the league just makes the rich get richer. Because this kid, again, I'm not going to say he's special, but this kid can play football. And I think they drafted him not for the running aspect. I think they drafted him so he can be in the passing aspect. Yeah, so they can put linebackers in space, put him in space so he can do his thing. Spread out the middle of the field so for guys like Travis Kelce to be able to get between the numbers. Another really good pick by Andy Reid. Him and Damian Williams should be really good in that offense.
Yeah, I also do believe, I think this is the void of them trying to replace Kareem Hunt. They could be using that to do that. But the Chiefs, they're still looking deadly, and they might be, the New England Patriots who rule the AFC for the next decade.
Yeah, I thought they were going to go defense too, because I think they had a couple of holes in the secondary. But I thought they were going to go defense as well. That front seven is actually pretty good, with being spearheaded by Chris Jones. So they're going to at least have him for at least another year before he becomes a free agent. So getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's good. He has the opportunity to be special as well too, because this kid has got a will to win. And I saw it again in that Alabama game. This kid is something else. And I actually said coming into that game, if we stop him, we keep him from running the football and make Joe Burrow one-dimensional, then we can beat them. But unfortunately, Helaire was everywhere. They ran, he passed, everything.
So, yeah, that's all we have for the first round of the NFL draft. It was one of the more highly anticipated drafts. I liked it a lot. It's something that keeps, us sports fans, having something to do other than watching, waiting for episode 3 and 4 of The Last Dance. But this is really going to, make NFL fans happy. Hopefully, the season can go through this year and we can get NFL football now. Will that have fans? I don't know. We're just gonna see. And yeah, now as for the draft nights, we won't go over through the other draft nights, other rounds. The only other round wise we're going to be doing is referring to Chicago Bears, but we won't talk Chicago Bears draft picks till the draft stuff is over. And the moment the Bears make their last draft pick, that's when I could care less about any other team, and I'll just focus on the Bears draft picks and stuff like that. But I guess my prediction for the Bears. My prediction for the Bears, their first draft pick, I feel like they got to go tight end because even though offensive line is a huge issue, there was a lot of the good offensive lines, especially tackles out there that were taken this round. But I feel like they just got to go tight end because right now tight end is just one of the weakest spots, especially after we cut Trey Burton, which I was overjoyed about doing that.
Yeah, me too.
So hopefully, and the draft pick for the tight end, I'm hoping that just drops to us is Cole Kmet from Notre Dame. They say he's going to be really good, and hopefully no team picks him up by the time we get our draft pick. Otherwise, the next best tight end I say was that tight end from Purdue. But other than that, that's my number one pick for the Bears. Hopefully. And I'm praying that Ryan Pace does not screw anything up because he has a tradition at screwing draft picks up. You can look at 3 years ago, and I think a few days ago, they actually showed the 2017 draft. I did not watch that because that would just give me bad memories. But we're going to see what the Bears do. So that's my draft pick. I don't know about my uncle.
Well, I'm thinking tight end as well. Tight end offensive line, because obviously those are two areas of need. However, if Xavier McKinney falls down to 43 or 50, I say draft them because we do need secondary help as well too on defense. But other than that, the tight end I'm thinking about obviously is the kid from Notre Dame. I think that kid is going to be special.
Yes.
But considering Nagy the way he's play called, it just doesn't look like he's actually calls plays for tight ends. So hopefully he revisits that if they draft this kid and start getting this kid opportunities so that he can excel as an NFL football player. But originally I'm thinking tight end and offensive line, unless McKinney from Alabama falls to 43.
And if they do end up drafting Kmet, it could be a nice little tandem they have with him and Jimmy Graham, and maybe Jimmy Graham can teach him some stuff.
Correct.
I still don't approve of the Jimmy Graham signing or whatever, despite us cutting Trey Burton. But regardless of the fact, there's going to be a big draft for the Chicago Bears if you're a Bears fan, because we're going to see, are they going to draft the issues of needs? Because technically they kind of did their free agency. Unless they're cutting anybody else. And the only other player I hope they cut is apparently Baby Gronk, Adam Shaheen. But then they say Kmet is like maybe could possibly be the next Rob Gronkowski. We'll have to see. Hopefully, hopefully the Bears make the right decision and they do the things. If I was there, I'd be calling Ryan Pace, be like, get this guy right now.
Hopefully he's there at 43.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's there at 43, and if they, because I'm hoping that they will grab the kid as well too, and if they get win similar to how Tampa Bay got win to go up and go to go get 13, hopefully the Bears get win and go up and go get this kid, because this kid I think is going to be special, and once we get this kid, it's up to Mike Nagy to see that this kid develops the way an NFL tight end should be, because Burton didn't do well under him. Shaheen didn't do well under him. And hopefully we can get it right by drafting this kid. I'm looking at him as well.
So, anyways, guys, thank you guys for checking out this video, even though this video is an hour long. But
Hour and a
obviously,
half.
it it's obviously the NFL draft, one of the biggest NFL events. And we'll be back when the Bears make their draft picks and they are done with them. But other than that, really, that's it. That's really other than that. That's really it.
Yep.
Because there's really nothing else to talk about sports. But
Yep.
other than that, that's really it. So if you guys like this video, leave a like. If there is a team who you're a fan favorite of, put in the comment section what do you think of their draft pick and stuff like that. Like to get feedback from other, fans' favorite teams. And also hit that subscribe button if you are a Chicago Bears fan. But if you're interested in seeing my wonderful rants of the Bears, go right ahead. But other than that, that's really it. So I'm going to get out of here. It's going on 11 for me, and one of my friends want me to play Call of Duty with them before I go to bed, and I have to get up at 5:30 for class.
Oh, well, that's good for you because I've been up here. It's 7:45 in the morning. I've been up since the draft started at 2 a.m. So once I'm done with you, I'm going to bed and get ready for my rants about the Chicago Bears. Now, I may get a little bit emotional about the Bears because, my expectations of what they may do,
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. All we can do is hope for the best that Ryan Pace and Mike Nagy will do what's necessary for the Chicago Bears moving forward. So, also, a shout out to all of our healthcare workers in the world dealing with the COVID-19 issue. You guys are the true heroes. You keep doing what you're doing to keep us safe. Listen to your health professionals well too, to follow the rules of social distancing. And we love y'all. Family at home, we love y'all. See you all later.
All right, guys, with further ado, we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you guys on the next draft video, which I believe will be Sunday night. I don't know when, but yeah. But other than that,
round two is tomorrow.
Yeah, round 2 is tomorrow.
Round 2 is tomorrow, and the rest of the draft they finalize, Sunday.
So other than that, guys, we're gonna get out of here. So we'll catch you guys on the next video. I'm debating if this will go up tonight, but it will probably go up tomorrow morning. So other than that, we'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.
All right. Peace out.